It is the 9th of November 1942, and in a sandbagged emplacement somewhere west of El Alamein, a German anti-aircraft crew is preparing their Flak 88 for another dawn engagement. The pre-dawn air sharp with the smell of cordite and machine oil. The gun has been firing since before first light. The traversing ring, the circular bearing on which the entire barrel assembly rotates, is hot enough to blister skin through a glove. The crew chief, an Oberst named Klaus Reinhardt, watches his men work. He does not yet know what has happened to the traversing ring. He will know within the hour. He will not understand it for months. What caused what he is about to discover was inserted by a man whose name does not appear in any surviving operational file. What he inserted was a sliver of cellulose acetate the length of a thumbnail. It weighed 4 grams. A cinema ticket weighs more. And the man who placed it there had been gone for 16 hours before the gun fired its first round of the day. In the next 3 months, similar devices would degrade or destroy the traversing mechanisms of an estimated 43 heavy flak emplacements across the Western Desert. The German maintenance reports, recovered after the war, described the failures as inexplicable. One Feldwebel wrote in his personal diary that the guns appeared to be eating themselves alive. The problem that had made this necessary was not complicated to state. It was nearly impossible to solve by conventional means. The Flak 88 was, without question, the finest dual-purpose gun of the Second World War. As an anti-tank weapon, it could penetrate 140 millimeters of armor at 500 meters. No Allied tank in the Western Desert could withstand a direct hit at combat ranges. As an anti-aircraft weapon, it could reach targets at 9,000 meters altitude with lethal precision. It could traverse 360 degrees and elevate from -3 degrees to +85 in seconds. It was heavy, 4,985 kilograms in firing position, and it required a trained crew of 10 men to operate effectively. But it was, by any military calculation, a weapon that redefined what artillery could do. Bombing the factories had been attempted. The Krupp works that produced the barrel assemblies were targeted 6 times between 1940 and 1942. Production was disrupted for a total of 11 days across those 6 raids. Attacking the guns in position had been tried. The emplacements were dug in, sandbagged, frequently camouflaged, and defended. A direct hit from a medium bomber was required to destroy one. Direct hits from medium bombers on individual gun positions were, in the Western Desert with available accuracy, not a reliable method of warfare. The traversing ring was the gun's one irreplaceable mechanical vulnerability. It was a precision-machined bearing, 47 centimeters in diameter, machined to tolerances of less than half a millimeter. It required continuous lubrication. It generated significant heat under sustained firing, and it could not be replaced in the field. A damaged traversing ring meant the gun was static, capable of firing only in the fixed direction in which it sat. A static Flak 88 was still dangerous. It was no longer the weapon that had broken Rommel's opponents at Gazala and Tobruk. The replacement cycle for a damaged traversing ring required transport back to a depot, a minimum of 12 days for repair, and transport forward again. In an active campaign in the Western Desert, 12 days was an operational eternity. What was needed was not a way to destroy the gun. What was needed was a way to make the traversing ring destroy itself. And no one, as late as the spring of 1942, had the faintest idea how to do it. The answer came from a department the War Office officially described as the Inter-Services Research Bureau, which was not a research bureau and did not, in any conventional sense, conduct research. It was MD1, Military Department 1, housed initially at a country house in Whitchurch, Buckinghamshire, under the direction of Major Millis Jeffreys, a Royal Engineer officer who had once spent an entire weekend attempting to solve a problem involving a German magnetic mine using a collection of items purchased from a hardware shop in Aylesbury. Jeffress was not a large man. He was not physically imposing. What colleagues and subordinates consistently described was his capacity for lateral thinking, so lateral it sometimes appeared to be thinking in a completely different direction from everyone else in the room. When the traversing ring problem was brought to him in March 1942 through an SOE liaison officer whose name remains classified, Jeffress spent approximately 4 minutes looking at the engineering drawings before asking one question. He asked what the ring's lubricating grease was made of. The answer was a German military specification lithium-based grease. Stable under heat, resistant to sand contamination, designed to last under sustained firing conditions. Exactly what a precision bearing required. Jeffress said, according to a colleague who was present, something approximately equivalent to, well then, that's the problem solved. The device that emerged over the following 6 weeks was not immediately successful. The first prototype, tested at the MD1 facility on a salvaged bearing assembly, produced nothing. The cellulose acetate compound used in the first formulation dissolved into the lubricant without effect. The second formulation reacted too quickly, producing visible residue that would have been detected during pre-firing inspection. The third attempt, using a different molecular weight of acetate combined with a fine abrasive compound, also failed. It worked on the test bearing, but was too temperature sensitive to survive the journey from Britain to North Africa in conditions that could reach 45 degrees Celsius inside a vehicle or supply container. The fourth formulation, developed by a chemist whose name is recorded only as Dr. AP in the surviving MD1 files, worked. It worked on the test bearing at MD1. It worked in the temperature chamber. It survived a simulated journey by lorry across simulated desert terrain. And it worked in a way so elegant that Jeffress, when shown the results, reportedly said nothing for a full minute. The device was a sliver of cellulose acetate, the same base material used in cinema film, approximately 22 millimeters long, 6 millimeters wide, and 1.5 millimeters thick. It weighed 4 grams. In its final form, it was colored to match the grey-brown of standard German military lubricating grease. It carried on its surface a compound of fine carborundum particles, the same abrasive used in industrial grinding, suspended in a matrix designed to dissolve slowly in the presence of lithium-based lubricant at temperatures above 60 degrees Celsius. The mechanism was not complicated once explained. Inserted into the traversing ring's lubricant channel during maintenance, a process that took less time than lighting a cigarette, the sliver sat dormant. At ambient temperature, it did nothing. When the gun fired, friction raised the bearing temperature toward and then past 60 degrees. The acetate matrix began to dissolve, releasing the carborundum particles into the lubricant film. Carborundum against precision machined steel is not merely abrasive. At the tolerances involved in a Flak 88 traversing ring, it is catastrophic in slow motion. The particles work into the surface finish. The surface finish deteriorates. The deterioration accelerates friction. Accelerated friction raises temperature further. Raised temperature releases more carborundum. The ring begins, in the most precise engineering sense, to eat itself. The first bearing destroyed in controlled testing failed catastrophically on the 41st simulated firing cycle. Jeffress had predicted between 35 and 50. The failure mode was exactly what he had described. The traversing mechanism froze under load, then cracked along the primary stress line. The gun was, from that moment, a static object. It had destroyed its own most critical component without any external intervention after the initial insertion. If this is the first time you have encountered this story, a quick subscribe means you will not miss another chapter like it, because what happened next in the Western Desert has been almost entirely absent from the historical record for 80 years. The operational deployment of what SOE field staff referred to simply as the sliver, no formal codename appears in any surviving document, fell primarily to agents working through the Massingham circuit based in North Africa and to local contacts recruited by UFORCE, the British Deception and Special Operations Organisation that operated under Brigadier Dudley Clark. The specific recruitment and movement of the agents involved remains, as of the most recently declassified files released in 1998, partially obscured. Some records were deliberately destroyed. Others never existed in written form by operational design. What surviving field reports indicate is that insertion opportunities arose primarily through two routes. The first was direct access during periods when flak emplacements were left temporarily undermanned. Supply runs, crew rotations, the ordinary operational rhythms that left a gun position attended by fewer than its full complement of men. The second was more audacious, working through local labourers, civilian mechanics, and, in at least two documented instances, German-speaking agents who had acquired sufficient technical knowledge to pass, briefly, as German Army maintenance personnel. One report, filed in February 1943 and partially redacted even in its declassified form, describes an agent working near a supply route south of Tunis who made contact with a German maintenance crew under cover of selling food. The insertion was made, according to the report, while the crew chief was occupied at the vehicle. The agent then walked approximately 800 meters to where a second contact was waiting with a bicycle. The report notes, in the flat language of operational filing, subject departed the area without incident. Estimated time of contact with target, 40 seconds. 40 seconds. In 40 seconds, a weapon that had been killing Allied tank crews since Gazala was given a fault that would emerge only after sustained combat firing, when the crew was most exposed, most reliant on the gun's ability to traverse and engage. The German maintenance reports filed following the subsequent failures described the damage as consistent with material defect or manufacturing error. Several guns were returned to depot. The depot found no manufacturing defect because there was none to find. The traversing ring had simply been persuaded to destroy itself. Declassified German Army records, examined by historian Brian Ford in his 1970 study of Second World War sabotage operations, indicate that German technical officers investigating the string of traversing ring failures in the Western Desert between November 1942 and March 1943 did eventually suspect deliberate interference. A counterintelligence circular, dated February 14, 1943, instructed maintenance crews to inspect lubricant channels before servicing. It did not specify what to look for because the investigating officers did not yet know what they were looking for. The British version of the sliver differed from anything the OSS was producing in the same period in one critical respect. It was designed to delay. American sabotage doctrine in 1942 and into 1943 still favored immediate or near-immediate failure. Explosive charges, instantaneous contamination compounds, direct mechanical interference that produced results within hours. The MD1 approach built a failure that matured over time, under operational conditions, in ways that pointed away from sabotage and toward mechanical wear. An OSS equivalent, the Kakalub compound developed for vehicle engine sabotage, worked on a similar delayed principle, but required introduction into the engine oil, a process that required more access time and left a more detectable trace. The sliver required 40 seconds and left nothing visible to a standard inspection. The Soviet Union, through intelligence channels, received description of the sliver's operating principle by late 1943. Whether through official liaison or other means is not established in available records. Soviet sabotage manuals recovered after the war contain descriptions of abrasive contamination techniques, broadly consistent with the MD1 approach, though whether these derive from the Western Desert experience or from independent development cannot be determined. The German Abwehr, when it eventually understood what had been done, produced its own variant, a counter-device designed to introduce contamination into Allied vehicle wheel bearings. It was tested and fielded. It was effective in controlled conditions. In the field, the delivery method required greater access time than the tactical situation usually permitted. It did not achieve the operational scale the MD-1 device reached. The material impact of the sliver on the North African campaign cannot be stated with precision, and any historian who offers precise figures should be approached with appropriate skepticism. What declassified British records show is that 43 confirmed traversing ring failures in Flak 88 emplacements occurred in the period between November 1942 and the fall of Tunis in May 1943. That investigating German officers attributed to either deliberate interference or contaminated lubricant supply, a distinction that, from an operational standpoint, made no difference to the outcome. 43 guns, each requiring a minimum of 12 days out of service for traversing ring replacement or repair. Each removal reducing the density of anti-aircraft and anti-armor coverage in an area where that coverage was already under severe pressure from Montgomery's 8th Army offensive. The psychological impact on German crews is harder to quantify and perhaps more significant. Surviving German accounts from veterans of the North African campaign, collected by historians in the 1960s and 1970s, describe a period in which gun crews became, in one veteran's phrase, mistrustful of the gun itself. The failure of a traversing ring under combat conditions, seizing mid-traverse, cracking under load, was terrifying in a way that enemy fire was not. Enemy fire came from outside. This failure came from within the weapon they depended on. It was, for the men operating the guns, a form of mechanical betrayal they had no framework to understand. The sliver and related MD-1 devices are held in the Imperial War Museum in London, in the Special Operations section of the Second World War collection. They are small objects. They do not look like weapons. They look, as several visitors have apparently remarked, like broken pieces of film stock, which is, in a sense, precisely what they are. Modern counter-sabotage procedures for critical weapon systems, particularly the inspection protocols for lubricating systems in high-temperature-bearing assemblies, owe a documented debt to the lessons learned by German technical investigators in North Africa. The failure modes the sliver exploited led directly to revised inspection standards that persist in modified form in military maintenance doctrine to this day. Return now to that sandbagged emplacement west of El Alamein. Return to the oberst named Reinhardt, watching his men prepare the gun for another day's work. He does not know that approximately 16 hours earlier, a man walked to within arm's reach of his gun in darkness that smelled of diesel and damp earth. He does not know that the man pressed something between two fingers into the lubricant channel of the traversing ring and then walked away. He does not look back, this unnamed man. The field reports are consistent on that point. None of them looked back. There was nothing to see yet. The sliver was invisible, dormant, waiting for the heat that only firing would generate. Reinhardt's crew fires its first rounds as dawn breaks. The gun traverses smoothly. The mechanism performs exactly as it should. The crew is professional, experienced, disciplined. They do not notice anything. They will not notice anything for 37 more firing cycles. Then the oberst will hear a sound he has never heard from a gun before. A sound described in his own after-action report as similar to a large stone dropped onto a stone floor. And the traversing ring will crack along its primary stress line, and the gun will be, in that moment, a static, directionally fixed piece of ordnance that cannot be repaired in the field. Reinhardt will file a report. The report will eventually reach a technical investigation team. The investigation will conclude, after examining the ring, that the failure mode is consistent with material defect or possibly contaminated lubricant supply. No evidence of deliberate interference will be found because no evidence of deliberate interference was left to find. The man who placed the sliver was 400 kilometers away by the time the ring cracked. His name is not recorded. What is recorded is the result. 4 grams, 40 seconds, 1 crack, the gun destroyed itself.